paper. Remember that? Got it. But look at, there's cool events coming up. There's a WordPress class here, October 12th from 6 to 7:30.
Wow,
Yeah, that's pretty awesome.
check that out.
If you're a Seven Hills Business District, anyone, Seven Hills Business District? We're trying to make Seven Hills, like, you know, how San Francisco, you got the Castro and the Haight, and we're trying to make Seven Hills like
The
that.
Castro.
Like, the Castro.
The business district.
Super cool.
No, we dropped business. It's just.
The district.
District.
All right,
No, I was trying to say, you're trying to make it business.
or art or maker.
Art, all of it. October 24th at Communal Cafe, we're having a tech meetup. It's just a tech social thing. So that's cool from 5:37.
Is that all public invited?
All public invited.
Great.
Yeah, and it's just anyone interested in technology, come and talk and socialize. They have beer and wine and food now. So that's great. And boom, Telestream is sponsoring it. So hopefully Dan Castle's gonna be there. We're doing a thrift store scavenger hunt fundraiser. It's super fun to do that. Teams and do that. And Capital Summit. So if you're looking for funding from traditional and non-traditional sources, we're partnering with the Northern California Small Business Development Center. It's at the Grange in Grass Valley. And it's gonna be super cool. And lunch is provided. So I think all this stuff is free. So you can't be free, good content. And I'm entrusting, here's the keys to see your comments. Got the keys there, bathroom's right there. And fun.
Thanks, man.
Yeah.
Great. Okay, so my name is Ethan Hunter. Welcome. This talk that we're giving tonight is about WordPress 101. And so basically, it's a way to build websites. This is put on by the Nevada County Tech Connection, which is an initiative of the Economic Resource Council of Nevada County. So, and right back there is the ED, right? Gil, so he's in the house. Yeah, so this is sponsored by them and are, by us. I actually work with the team there. So working mostly in websites and then doing a little bit of educational videos. So, all right, so who am I? My background is I was kind of doing retail, grocery and food and stuff. And I was like, I want a different life. I want to do something different. So I started doing coding and kind of fell into the NCTC where there was kind of mentors doing all different kinds of things, different coding. And anyways, I was able to find a mentor that was really into WordPress. So my idea was I really wanted to serve people in the community and also kind of, make a living doing it. And so I found WordPress and ditched coding. So that's where we're at. That's who I am. And I've been doing it for about 3 years. I do some freelancing. I'm mostly helping my local community with some of their websites. I live on the San Juan Ridge. So I've been kind of doing that. And then recently, through that, I started working with R&B Communications here in Grass Valley. And so I do some account management, website stuff, and then some marketing. So let's get into the talk. So I'm a total evangelist for WordPress. I think it's the greatest thing ever. Does everybody know what WordPress is? No? Okay, great. So this is going to be even more helpful for you. So let's get right into it. And let's see if I can do this hybrid-y stuff. Okay, so what is WordPress? Okay.
Your contact information?
I'll give it to you at the end. Is that okay?
Sure.
And I also wanted to say, because I need to have full disclosure, that we are recording this meeting and that it will be put up on YouTube and Facebook, just so everybody knows that. Okay, cool. Okay, so what is WordPress? So WordPress is a free open source content management system. We like to call it CMS in the WordPress world. There are other CMSs like Squarespace, Shopify, Wix, Weebly, things like that, right? So it's a open source one, which means, and what is open source? Means that everybody's working on it. It's free. There's a community of people out there that are working on it. And that's one of the really, what I think is really one of the beautiful things about WordPress itself is that it is free and there's a community around it that supports it. So basically it started in 2003. It was mainly about blogs, and then it kind of developed into more. So now it's pretty much whatever you want. You want grandma's, knitting club to, Nike and e-commerce. Everybody's using it. In fact, almost 40% of all websites on the internet are built on WordPress. So right there, that tells you something. Let's see, by having, yeah, exactly. So by having an open source environment, people are always working on it and making improvements and adding needed functionality. So not only are people working on WordPress software in the core, but there's people working on third-party kind of solutions, So I need a payment gateway because I'm running an e-commerce. I need an email kind of mailer program like Constant Contact or something like that. It's just the sky's the limit. So that's the what of WordPress, okay? So the next one is where. So where do we get WordPress? Well, one place you can get WordPress, so if you have a host, like GoDaddy, SiteGround, the list goes on and on and on. They kind of have their own, like, you go in and you say, I want to buy, joeschmo.com, whatever. You buy that name, and then you can use their kind of integration or software, or the way that they set it up. You can kind of just spin up a WordPress website like that. Or you can do it on your own and just go to wordpress.org and download it.
Ethan, I think we need your screen share if you're showing
Oh,
stuff.
I'm so sorry. I'm not screen sharing to these guys. So
And we've got some lovely new attendees via the Zoom, Catherine, Jude, and George. So
sorry, I
want to
got
make sure.
a Zoom in my ear. Okay, now do you have the screen share? Yep, cool.
Thanks.
Sorry about that, Zoomers.
Hey, that's why I'm here, Ethan. Thanks again.
Cool. Okay, so anyway, so that's the where of it, right? So you can get it on a hosting. And so here's a different thing too. So a lot of people hear WordPress and they go, well, I have to go to wordpress.com and host my site. Well, you don't. You can go to wordpress.org and get the software. WordPress.com is like a hosting site itself, so you can use that. And a lot of times you can get like these free ones. So, like johnhenry.wordpress.com would be your URL. And then you could pay more in wordpress.com, but a lot of times those things become really limiting. So I always suggest people at least go to like GoDaddy, Bluehost, another hosting platform where you're not having a lot of these limitations or fee hikes to access the next level. Like with wordpress.com, if they don't like your content for whatever reason, bye-bye website. And, some people are, don't want to lose their site, and usually that's going to be because you're putting some weird stuff on your website. But, just it's another way to be free from those constraints. So WordPress.org is a great place to download it. You can always go to different hosting places to have it. When the one that I'll share with you at the end of the talk tonight is just hosted on my computer. So it's just the software, and you turn your computer into a little server, so to speak, and boom, there you are. And I actually do that a lot when I'm in development. If I'm trying to troubleshoot something and I know I'm going to break something, then I'll just do it locally so I don't mess up my website. All right. So that's the where. Let's see, do I have anything else in my notes? Yeah, there's a lot of managed hosting opportunities out there too for you all. So, oops. All right, so the who can do WordPress? You can do WordPress. Anybody can do WordPress. A lot of people say, well, WordPress is going to be a huge learning curve. And there is a little bit of a learning curve. So if you go to say like Shopify or Squarespace, that learning curve might be a little bit shorter for you. But in terms of ownership, you own that WordPress website wherever you put it. Whereas Squarespace or Shopify or something like that, you're kind of stuck on their platform. So, when you get down to it, like scalability, like, oh, it worked great. But now I need to add 5,000 products to my website. And now it's getting really cumbersome, or the fees are too much to have all this additional stuff. So, anyway, so anybody can do WordPress. And not only that, but there's a huge community out there. There's just people who are doing it on their own. There's, companies like Upwork or Fiverr, all these like freelance that you can hire people pretty cheap. You'd be surprised how many people know a little bit about WordPress. So you can always find that help, and there's a community. And I even go to, which is online, Sacramento has a WordPress meetup that they do once a month, and they'll even host camps where they'll have like, a whole weekend of people coming out and talking about it and introducing different products or different ways that they're doing things, giving you classes and stuff like that. So the who of it is that basically everybody can do it. It's a very DIY friendly, user friendly. And yes, there is a learning curve, but it's really not that complicated. And I can tell you that basically from experience, because I didn't go to school for WordPress. I went to YouTube. I went to tutorials. I read the documents. So, and there's always a way or a resource or even a forum or a place to find people who are there to help you, if you get stuck on something. Or, a lot of times just doing some YouTubing and you'll find those answers. That's how well supported the community and the kind of sphere around WordPress is. Okay. Okay, why? So this is the big one for me. So it's so big that I even wrote a blog about it. All right, so we'll just kind of blow through this. We don't have to read everything. So why WordPress, right? So why WordPress? Because 30 to 40% of the internet is built on WordPress. So that tells you something right there, how powerful it is, how many people are using it, okay? Another reason is, and I've said this and I'll keep hammering it home, it's free, It's not free to have buy your URL, your website name. It's not free to host it unless maybe you host it on your own computer, but the software itself is free. So that's a huge barrier for some people, especially if they're tinkering around at first and they just want to play with the website. They don't want to go spend $20, $30, whatever it is a month to do that. So and then of course it's DIY friendly. So going back to this, kind of the same things that I was saying before, that there's, with the basic few skills, you're going to be fine. There's a lot of themes out there, and that's something I'll kind of show you guys. It's kind of what we call a template. So there's the banners here and the sidebars are here and the different images are placed and they have different fonts and colors and text. So you can go through and choose that one. They'll even tailor like, oh, you're a restaurant, here's a restaurant website. You're a hotel, here's a hotel, whatever that, you a blog, you want to have a membership, you want to have a forum, there's a theme for it. You don't have to build it from scratch. Again, a huge community out there. That's one of the things that I think I like the most, is that, you find your people, there's plenty of them out there. And there's all kinds of different types of people were using WordPress, and if you're in a certain niche or something like that, you'll find a community that's just kind of in that sphere and working around that. Okay, so one of the things that I find really great about WordPress is that it's customizable and flexible. So whatever you want, it'll happen. You want to start small and you want to get bigger, that'll be there for you. So a lot of times, like other platforms, again, you're kind of constrained to some of what they do. Whereas WordPress, you're more allowed to kind of scale it, if you will, be flexible. So development's great, right? So it's open source. People are working on this every day. They get together, they have meetups, they have meetings, they get in groups and they say, oh, I need to fix this. And so, because it's nonprofit, there's just a bunch of people working on it. And again, like I said, there's like third-party, integration. So whatever you want, whatever you can imagine that you need to do with your website, there are plugins and functionality and different things like that that'll help you do that. Um, and again, it's extremely budget friendly. I mean, free. It's free. And then, you know, URL. So say you want to buy a domain name, maybe 15, 20 bucks a year for that. If you're going to manage, and we can talk about that a little bit, because your plugins, your themes, even the WordPress site will need to be updated from time to time. So, you know, because there's new software, maybe vulnerabilities or a bug or something like that. So it's something to keep your site healthy. So if you do all that yourself, then you keep your costs down. So you could get, you know, even hosting for $5 a month for a website. So you can see right there, all right, you know, I want to try something out, but I don't want to spend a bunch of money and time and energy. And again, the DIY person can do it. So they're, you know, they don't have to go out and hire a developer and spend 10 grand on a website, you know, right from the get-go. So WordPress is, it's secure, but you know, it's 30 to 40% of the internet. So you can imagine the amount of hackers and bots that are hitting it. But it's built well. And again, because it's open source and it's constantly being developed. So there's tons of, you know, if there's a security problem, they're trying to fix it. And then there are other plugins and things like that that you can do to kind of stretch that. Go ahead. I will, and what I'm going to do is after I kind of give you the overview, then I'll say, okay, these are the plugin, the theme, these are kind of what you would see, and there's like the options are endless. So yeah, so it's fairly secure. So it's one thing that you can rest assured about, that your website will be safe. All right, so why not others? So one of the great things about most content management systems is that it's pretty much codeless, right? So you don't have to learn HTML, CSS, JavaScript, whatever. You don't have to go PHP. You don't have to learn any of that, because you can be in a codeless environment. Now with WordPress, you can totally get in there and mess with the code too, because it's open source. So you can do whatever you want with that code. Once it's on your website, it's for you to do whatever. So, and occasionally, like as developers, we'll just go in and kind of tweak a little bit of a code, especially like on the design side of things. If we want a certain color or move something around a little bit, we'll do that. So, and again, you know, other sites that offer these content management systems, you're kind of locked into them. You know, you don't like your host anymore. You don't like, you know, Squarespace, for example. You're stuck. You know, but WordPress, I don't like GoDaddy. I'm going to go to SiteGround. Totally fine. So that's really awesome too, right? And so another thing that'll happen too, and even this does happen in WordPress.com, but other sites where you're constantly, oh, I want to add this payment gateway, or I want to add this, or I want to add a ton of images because I have a gallery. They start adding these fees as you go up in level, and they add more tiers and more tiers and more tiers. And so that's kind of like, to me, it's a negative. And so that's why I would say that WordPress is a better idea. Okay. All right, so that is the WordPress in a nutshell talk. And so I think I have kind of a bonus thing here, but I think before we do that, I'd like to just, next thing is I'm gonna show you what let me get rid of this too, because that seems to be a distraction. I'm sorry.
You need to admit somebody. You see it says Catherine's in the reading room.
So he's managing that.
Oh.
Thank you. Yeah, because I mean, you can see I'm already from here to there. So I have somebody on Zoom who's, that's why I have one extra right here, so I can, anyway, so let's go ahead and look at there it goes. Oops. We don't want Encore. I'm sorry. Hold on. That was another site I was working on. WordPress. Okay, so we will start here. So this Um, so this is a basic beginning install of WordPress that comes with the newest theme. So before I start diving into the themes and the plugins that you were asking about, is there any questions overall? Go ahead, and then you.
A website on GoDaddy, but they use, I think it was called Web Builder. But you could have WordPress and replace that, or they like Web Builder, or is Web Builder another name for WordPress?
So I would have to look at what you have, but I think that what I know about GoDaddy is it has its own like web builder. So it has its own content management system. So that's different than WordPress.
So if I like WordPress, I could shift everything over.
You would have to probably do the work. You might be able to ask GoDaddy if they're able to take whatever design and all the things that you have kind of built on that and migrate it into WordPress. But chances are you're probably going to have to like, you might have to do some of it yourself, you know? And that's why I really like, I try to like, hey man, you're gonna build a website, like build it on WordPress right away, you know? But we don't know that, you know, until we get there, right? Sometimes. So, you know, when I first started, I was using like WYSIWYG and Netscape or something, you know, it was just crazy stuff, you know, and like we didn't have buttons, we had to create graphics, you know, things like that. So, but yes, to answer your question, you might have to take the GoDaddy builder and then you would have to maybe do some of the work yourself to get onto the WordPress website. So, but you know, there are people that can help you if you know something that you're not, you know, familiar with. There's a lot of, you know, resources, people like myself that you could, you know, hire to do things like that too. So.
I actually have two questions. So one is, I got a domain name Namecheap.
Yep.
So I can set up a website with that name on WordPress.
Yeah. So, okay. The question was for the Zoomers. Can I buy? I have a website on that I purchased the domain name on Namecheap. Can I put that on WordPress? Absolutely. Because basically what you've done there is that you've just bought the domain name, right? So that becomes what we call a name server or a registrar. So at that point, you'll just say, okay, my website, you know, lives over here. Any traffic that comes in for that domain name, point that to that server, that host. And that's how you would do that. And that would be through your DNS management. But a lot of times, like if you're starting with a host or something like that, they'll help you walk through those steps, or Namecheap will even do that for you. Because it's some basic, basic just kind of settings that you have to change in order to take Namecheap and point it there. But they'll literally help you do that, especially if you go say like you went to SiteGround and you spun up a WordPress website and you say, I want this website that I've made right here to have this domain name. Then you just tell the Namecheap and they'll help you with that for sure.
So that kind of leads into my second question. What's the difference between CMS and hosting? So that's the difference. The hosting site is for like Namecheap.
Yeah, okay, so the question is, what's a CMS and what's the difference between a content management system like WordPress and the hosting? So hosting is just your house, wherever you put your stuff. Yeah, so basically it's a computer, wherever that is, you know? So you put that software, that website there, and then usually you'll have an IP address, right? And then that's what you would say to Namecheap to do that. So the CMS itself is just the software that you would build the website on, right? But then you need a place to put the website. So that's the difference with a host. Now a host will offer you a CMS like WordPress, or in this case, GoDaddy has a site builder. They'll offer that to you. But that's the difference. So you have kind of a person that you buy your URL from, a person that whatever where you're going to use to build your website, and a place where it lives. A lot of times you go to a host, they're going to take care of all that for you. You're going to buy your domain name from the host, SiteGround. You're going to use their content management system, and your website's going to live there. And that's usually a really nice, clean way to do it. I'm like looking for that cheap deal, so I'll go Namecheap, and then I'll go over to my host, and I'll pack a bunch of stuff in there and try to, maximize that server just, because if you have, say you have 7 sites, but you might have, like in my case, I'll duplicate a site so that if I'm working on something, I'm not working on the live site in case I really mess it up, that site's not messed up. So sometimes even though I have 7 websites live, I'll have 15 websites actually living on my server, if that makes sense. Okay. Any other questions?
How robust is the WordPress developer community here in terms of being able to hire someone to do work for you?
Okay, so how robust is the local community in WordPress? Gosh, there's so many people that we don't even know are working on WordPress. And then, like I work for RV Communications, so we have a certain amount of team in-house. You'll find a lot of freelancers that are working in WordPress. I think Briar Patch has a local guy, or it might have been local guy, although he has a couple satellite places, Sherpa, I think, design. He's local. There was a,
Fiverr and freelancers are wonderful,
yes,
but I want to be able to sit across the table from someone
absolutely.
and write a check and hand it to them
Yep.
and look them square in the eye and know whether he's a flake or not.
Absolutely. You could Google who is locally, but there are a few different agencies, and then there are freelancers out there. Sometimes you have to do a little bit of digging, especially if you're doing something smaller, like someone like me, like I'm working for an agency, so we're typically working with a kind of a larger purse clientele, so to speak. So, some of the smaller ones, you're better off finding freelancers, and a lot of times, like, if I can only take on so many myself, but I can have a little bit of extra stuff in there, especially if it's just somebody who just needs a few things like that. But you did ask for my contact, so we can get that. So then if you come to me and say, hey, do you know somebody, I can at least try to refer you. And, sometimes there'll be people maybe not in this area, but, like I said, there's a, Sacramento meetup and places like that. So there are other people just out of our own sphere, close by that are doing that. Yeah, so that answer your question?
Somewhat.
Right. Okay. Yeah. That's kind of the people I know, is mainly the agencies and a few freelancers that I do know. That's about it. Is there a huge, like, a pool of them? I don't know. I know there's a lot of them, like a lot of people out there that do work on WordPress. So, yeah. Okay.
But there is kind of a common place they would advertise their services.
Not generally. I mean, even like freelance, like, one man show, you're only gonna you only got time for so many accounts. You know what I mean? It just how the cookie crumbles on that one. But I do know of a few freelancers in the area, and then I've just listed 3 agencies or people that are doing that as well. So that's the sphere that I know. I mean, typically I get kind of out of my bubble too, right? So I'll go to the Sacramento meetup. I'm looking, for that bigger audience, or at least the like-minded community. Okay. Okay, so this is a new install. So I just grabbed WordPress and I installed a new one. This is their most current theme. You can see, so and it comes by default, just kind of set up with a basic header, and WordPress originally being a blog web, kind of CMS. They always kind of just start out with a blog. So hello world, and in the coding world, that you do everything the first time you do it, you do hello world. So that's the only reason for that. Okay, so let's this is what we call the front end of WordPress. So now let's go ahead and look on the back end. So right now we don't have a lot of anything going on, but you can see here we have a place for posts. So people who are creating blogs can create posts there. And there's a lot more stuff that you can add to this for sure. Media, so there's a place for you to put your images, your documents, your video, your audio stuff. Okay, so there's a spot for that. Excuse me. There's a spot to create pages. So there's, that's another part of the back end. Obviously, a lot of blogs and things like that come with comments. Anytime you have a theme, you'll have this thing, what we call a customizer. And And then we have plugins. We have a place for users, some tools, so a bunch of different stuff here, and then some settings. And that's just like the basic that comes out of it. There's a lot more you can add to it. If you were to have an e-commerce site, you would add probably something WooCommerce, and you would see things like products and reviews and all that kind of stuff up in here. So to answer your question about plugins, so let's just go to the plugin page. And we'll go, like, there's no plugins installed here right now. So you go to add new, and this is one of the cool things about WordPress. So immediately it's giving you kind of like, all right, these are all the, different plugins that, are popular, right? So, and one thing that's really cool is, okay, so 22 people rated this, 1 million active users. It was last updated 9 months. So that's really great to know, like kind of looking at those things on plugins. Was it tested with your recent version? No. So it'll say things like that. So we got featured ones. We have what we call popular. So this would be, and this is just a scratch on the surface, y'all. So I don't want you to think that, oh, this is very limited. But okay, so you can do a contact form. Here's a plugin to create contact forms on your website. Here's a plugin to help you get your SEO better. Does everybody understand what SEO is? Okay, so search engine optimization. How to make it so that Google likes you the best. Okay, that's kind of what we would say what it is in a nutshell. There's a lot more to it than that, but here's a example. Like I use this builder a lot. This is a way for me to help design or get away from themes and create my own website, and that's kind of what I do. I started out doing themes, more like templates and things like that. But you can see, okay, here's another one, WooCommerce. This is all about, like, it'll set up a whole shop for you. It'll give you a shop page, product pages. It'll help you set up your shipping, your paywalls, all that. At the beginning of it is all right here in this one plugin. So, what we see here is overall just kind of functionality. I need to migrate my site. This is a really popular one that I recommend everybody put on their website. And I think that might have spurred the plugin, right? Is security. So, here's a plugin, and some of these plugins, and I want to be clear about this. There are what we call freemium and then premium, right? So a lot of times you'll have a plugin that's free, but not everything has like the best functionality or the best user experience. So then you can pay the premium. There's some plugins that are just straight up premium, right? So I tend to be on the cheap side. So I look for the free ones first, and that's a really good place to start, especially for people who are just starting out building their website. Again, there's just, it's endless. So let's see if we'll go to recommended and see if that gives us anything different. No, it's all about the same. Favorites. No. All right. So who needs a function? What do you guys do? Somebody say something like, what do you need for your website right now?
You showed how to put, like, connect MailChimp into your website, so you can sign up for your.
So I can't show you that, but I can show you that. Oops, sorry.
So yeah, because that's a big thing. You have to sign up for your newsletter.
If I spell it right? No, it's just
61202.
yeah. It's not letting me do it. That's weird.
How about sign it?
Oh, there it is. Okay.
Yeah,
Just being a little wonk. So there's, you can see there's more than one version of MailChimp and more than one functionality. Like I need this aspect of MailChimp, or I need MailChimp to talk to this other program that I have, right? So, already we're seeing, there's endless possibilities here just by asking MailChimp.
If you wanted a member page.
So you want a membership plugin? Yeah. So question was, do we have a membership option of functionality? And boy, do we. And these are, you know, WordPress has a certain amount. There's actually, you can go to websites that don't even have their kind of listing in WordPress. They got more. You know what I mean? That's what I mean about the community and the sphere around WordPress, is that there's a lot of people developing third-party kind of tooling and functionality that you would need. And again, you can see there's just endless. You want paid membership, you want content membership with content restrictions. You know, the list goes on and on and on. So go ahead.
So is it safe to assume that if you paid someone to develop your website in WordPress, you could go in and make changes to it?
Oh, absolutely. You know, so you can do some of the stuff yourself, or what I like to do is teach people how, you know, to do that themselves. So yeah, and it gives you a sense of ownership. Or, you know, say you had a falling out with your developer. You know what I mean? Now you get to go somewhere else and still have that, you know, it feels good, right? You're like, oh, shoot, man, I'm like not totally dead in the water now because I don't like Stan anymore. You know what I mean? So, or Stan left for whatever reason.
Sure on your contract with Stan that you have the ownership rights of what he develops or pulls together for you?
Well, and as developers, we won't give you the keys to the kingdom until we've gotten the paycheck. Because that's come back the other way too, right? You give your client, you know, the keys, and then they just take off with the car. And you're like, hey man, I built this car. Like, can you pay me? So yes, there is that kind of thing. But to answer your question, it's really awesome for you to, and again, YouTube, read the documents. A lot of times, a lot of these will have their own documentation. So I'm having a problem or I want to do this, you can sit there and read it. And you know, for me, like, I'm not much of a reader, I'm more of a doer. So I like to watch somebody do it. You know, it works better for my mind, but some people are really good at reading documentation and can do that too.
What about mobile optimization? Is that a plugin?
No, so a lot of times, and what happens now is so the question was, what about mobile optimization? So a lot of themes now are mobilely optimized already, right? So when you, for example, when you squish this, and we'll see, it'll probably make a liar out of me, but no, see how it optimized? So immediately it's already, oh, this screen size is, all right, now it's bigger, you know, as the hamburger menu goes away. Now you can see the clickable links and you can see how it's kind of expanding and contracting. So a lot of the themes now are mobile friendly because, you know, as somebody, I watch websites and kind of activity, we have analytics that we use. And I can't tell you, like, it's over 50% a lot of times now are most of my websites are mobile users. So when I see somebody has like a website that's like 20 years old and it's not mobile responsive, or they're using some really archaic way of like having their shop or whatever online, you know, they're getting hits because people are like, I'm out of here, your website is not usable and I can't buy the wine that I want, you know. And so yes, that is a really good question, and most themes now are mobile responsive. Okay. So let's,
Oh, sorry, that's how you test it though, is just by shrinking the page down?
yeah, sometimes it'll do that, sometimes it won't. And like for that one, for example, on testing mobile, I can only squish to maybe a pad, but you know, some phones are like tiny. So, you know, I have a couple tools in the tool shed. Actually and I could show you real quick here, just as a geeky moment. All browsers have what we call developer tools. So I just, you know, opened up this thing, and you can do it differently than what I did. So you can go, think, what is it? Yeah, inspect, and that'll give you the same kind of thing on the right click. So Safari has that, Foxfire, you know, Mozilla has that, Google Chrome has that. And so then I can go up here and, you know, adjust any kind of responsive, or I want to see it in, you know, this form, or, you know, I want to just kind of drag it around and see what that is. Let's see if I can get this to go bigger. Anyways, that's kind of we're off the beaten path here, but you see how I can test that. And then you can see all the code to the website over here. So people that are really like me who do like to mess with the code, that's how I would go and see what's going on. You know, a lot of times I'll do that to troubleshoot. Okay. So that's just a little bonus around there. Okay, so let's go into themes, right? So the theme that it comes with now is the 2022 theme. There's also the 2020 theme that usually comes with, and the 2021 theme. I won't get into this too much now, but WordPress used to be what we call classic editor. And so it was very archaic and you can only do too many things. Now we have what we call Gutenberg blocks, but we're calling that the block editor now. And so that's allowing us to like customize our pages and do all kinds of weird things without themes, without page builders. It's the way. Like it's going to be really awesome, and it's going to make many people that are DIY that want to try to develop WordPress on their own, they're going to be able to do it and not have these clunky kind of older sites. So, but that in itself is a whole talk. So we won't go there. But anyway, so what I want to show you is that like there are themes that come with it. So okay, well, remember this theme, right? We just saw that one. So now we can come over here and we can activate this theme. And now we'll go back and we will oops. So yeah, cool. So look, different website. Right? So this is the beauty of theming. And this is where I started with WordPress, was just grab a theme and start building on it because I didn't understand enough about builders at that point. So that's another thing which is really great for the DIYer and the entry-level person is, hey, you can just go find that theme. So, oops, did I do that? Yeah, okay. And we'll go back to themes. All right, so let's see here. Give me a topic, some kind of theme you all want. Bakery? Great. Let's see if we can pull one up here. Nope. Yeah, no, I'll have to go to add new is why. I didn't do the next step. Boom. That's simple. You know, so, and that's the great thing about WordPress is it's scalable and flexible. Now, all your content is still there. So if you wanted to change your theme or you want to go to a builder and now you're looking to scale up, or, you know, hey, I've got the bakery theme and so does the guy down at the shop down the street. So now we look identical, you know, and that is one thing that about themes is that there's 100 other, you know, people using that theme too, you know, but again, so we can, let's see how long this takes here. We can install that theme. It doesn't take too long. Yeah, cool. And we will activate it.
So just to clarify, theming is setting that all your titles are the same font.
Yeah, the
You
theme.
have a color across the top, which is purple. You have a bar across the, you have a series of pictures that are going to be across the bottom. Is that what a theme is?
Yeah, it's a way that it's set up, right? So it's whatever that theme says. Like this is the purple header. These are the 3 boxes. You know, the next theme says this is a blue header and the logo sits over here. And now we have a sidebar and it's just a bunch of text. You know what I mean? So each theme is unique, you know, so that's what you're saying. What I'm saying when you're choosing a theme, you know, you're choosing kind of how they have it set up, right? And a lot of times it's not just your front page. It'll be like your product pages, your about, your contacts, you know, they'll kind of give you a blueprint, if you will, of different pages in the website, you know, so it depends on the theme. And again, there's freemium and premium, right? So there are different scalable things in that theme. Did that answer your question? So like essentially like different templates of a website. And then you go in and put all your content in, you know, so you would change, you know, like instead of it saying WordPress, it'd be like grandma's, you know, oatmeal cookies, you know, as a bakery or something like that. So you would go in here and change. And right now we don't have any content in here and it is set up, but you know, you'd add your images but this is kind of how they started, you know, they've set up their theme originally.
Can you change the color palette as well, or are you stuck with whatever?
A lot of times with theme, unfortunately, you're stuck with whatever. A lot of times that they will give you like a little bit, so you can, or it gives you the bones, and then you can go in and say, I want this typeface or this font, or I want this shade of yellow and get rid of that purple. There are things that you can do in there to help customize it, and we can poke in there for a second because we're doing pretty good on time. All right, so we have a theme. And you notice like before when I went to appearances and I had that original theme, there wasn't all these other, choices. So one thing we can do here is we can go into the customizer, and this happens a lot with themes in general. And this is to answer your question, like, yeah, now I can go in and, set my site title, my tagline, adjust the logo width, whatever I want. Probably did that too fast for it to even notice. All right, colors. Here you go. So a lot of themes, and it really just depends. Like, all right, we're going to change the text to purple. Boom. We want to, maybe, and each theme is going to be different. And so this one comes with sections, right, in its front page. So you can see, well, we can edit the slider section, we can, and style it, and each one's going to be different. So, what you're seeing here, another theme may not have the same kind of UI or user, interface that, is what we call it.
And when you have a theme, it's for everything. You can't have a different theme for your about page.
Exactly, because your theme is kind of locked in. That's why I've kind of moved away from themes, because I like to have it all. But essentially a theme is doing what any good design will do, which is make it all look the same, make it fluid. There's nothing worse than going to a site and you got font and different sizes here, and then you go to this page and it's totally different. That's bad branding. That's bad styling. Yes, that's one of the cool things about having a theme, is they kind of set that up for you. So that's usually a good place to start. For sure, especially for people who are doing it themselves.
Like what you're doing, playing around with, like, without publishing it. Sort of learn.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, you can go in there and like you don't have to have it live. So that said publish. So that was just like make my changes on the theme itself. That's what was happening there. But yeah, you can totally mess around before you make it live and things like that. But if you do make changes on a live site through the customizer, then it's live. So that's why I like to do what we call staging, which is make a duplicate of the website, do whatever you want, and then you like it. Okay, then we would migrate that. We take that website and put it on the new website. And we do this to what I call, we avoid cowboy coding, because people just do all kinds of willy-nilly, and then all of a sudden they broke their site. And it's the worst thing, and I've done it a bunch. So I've learned, one, I'll take a backup, I'll make a copy of my site. So at least if I mess up, I'm like, oh, okay, I messed up, put the new site back up. Shoo, But really the best way is what we would call a staging site. So take a duplicate of that, build whatever you want, then bring your website back over. Does that make sense? Okay.
Is that before publish, or when does that happen?
So unfortunately, that thing what we saw published, it just means I'm making changes. It's not actually publishing it to the live site.
Oh.
You see what I'm saying? So in this instance, right now, this is living on my computer, but anything that I would do, and if it was on a live site, then it would be facing forward. That's why I like to have a copy of this website, make my changes, mistakes or whatever, and figure that all out. Then either reproduce it on the live site, or what I just do is I'll take that copy and say, okay, now that copy is the live site copy now. And we call that migrating. And a lot of times hosting will do that too. They'll be like, yeah, you can have a staging environment too, which is great for the DIYer too, because if you make a mistake, it's not the end of the world, So, and I've done it before on live sites, and it's horrible, especially when a client needs their website, and you're the one that did it. So, all Okay, so I think I covered themes. I covered,
Got a
um,
quick question from over here, Ethan.
yeah, so we have a quick question from Zoom. Go ahead and I'll relay it, David.
Jude's asking which hosts offer staging environments.
Which hosts offer staging environments? That's a big question that I can't answer. But what I can tell you is that most hosts will offer a staging environment, as well as there are plugins out there to create a staging environment. And so a lot of times that'll do it. The thing you'll have to worry about, or you'll have to be concerned about, is if you're using a host that says, well, you can only get this big, right? So if you duplicate the site and it's bigger than they have said that you can get this big, that becomes a problem. But other than that, I would say that most sites that are offering a WordPress hosting and then what we call WordPress manage. So I just showed you guys like themes and updates, right? And I was saying how that needs to be updated. Well, a cheap plan that hosting won't do any of that. You know, so yeah, you can pay the $5 to have the website there, but you really need to pay the $20 or $30 so they update it, unless you're going to do that yourself. And updating does break things sometimes. Developers aren't perfect. Sometimes they don't know that this plugin over here, because WordPress has lots of plugins, is not going to work with this plugin anymore. So they like update it and like, oh no, my site's broken, you know? So that's also sometimes a cool thing to do in staging, is to test that out. What I like to do is sometimes, so I update about 50 sites and then I think a multi-site once a week. So yeah, I'm really like on top of it as far as that goes. But you could do it like a month or you know, I would say not don't wait like more than 3 months. But sometimes it's really good to not, as soon as that update comes out, don't do it. Sometimes it's good to wait. And there's actually certain plugins, like I use Elementor a lot for page building, and I'm like, oh no, this is Elementor's known to not necessarily be on top of it right away and let their users find out what broke. So I'll wait a week or two maybe to use that plugin. And then, you know, of course, my social media and everything, it doesn't have friends. It just has Elementor and WordPress and all that stuff. So I'm always trying to stay on top and educate myself on that. So anyways, to answer that question, Jude, I would say that I can't give you an answer, but there are a lot of them that do offer that. Most of them will give you some sort of thing, but it is something sometimes you might have to pay extra for, or you can use a plugin and do it yourself as long as you have the server space.
Thank you.
Right on. Okay, that is kind of my, yes.
So when we pick different things, can we just set the content and we can kind of summary two different things? To automatically migrate all
So the question was, if I create a theme and then I want to do a different theme, do I have to change all that content? Yes and no. And the thing is because whatever text, whatever images you decided to do are still living on the WordPress website, but the theme may be presenting that content differently, right? So you might have pretty boxes that are showing all your product on one theme, but then you switch to a blog one. Well, those pretty boxes aren't part of that theme anymore, you know? But all your images are still in there, and you might need to, redo that. But there's certain things that will, but no, when you switch a theme, you can't just like, put on a new theme and hope it looks the same, because it's more than just colors and fonts. It's how it's built. You know what I mean? So if I have a cabin and I have all my furniture arranged in a certain way in that cabin, and then I decide just to like, boom, all of a sudden that cabin is a 5-story, 5-bedroom house. Well, the furniture is not going to be in the same spot anymore, if that makes sense. Okay. Okay, so that is what I could show you. Go ahead.
Backing up your content so that if something happens along the way, you have your content not on WordPress but off site, so that you can load it into another system? How do you do that?
Absolutely. That's a great question. And that's one of the things that I learned right away. So, and it's a really important thing that you brought up. So a lot of people will back up their site, but they'll leave it on the WordPress, kind of environment itself on that website. And that's actually a really bad thing to do. So what I use is a plugin that makes a backup, and you can say, back it up every hour, back it up every day, back it up every week, back it up once a month. And there's many different ways of kind of integrating that. Dropbox, I use Google Drive. And so what I do is each one of my websites, I back up once a week. I keep 3 of them in redundancy, so they'll kind of weed themselves out as the newest one comes in, the oldest one goes away. And I put that on Google Drive. That way, if like some dude like hacks my site and destroys it, no problem. I got it over here before they destroyed it. And that happens a lot in development where we were doing something this morning and it was on a dev site. So that means it's not live. But we broke it like 4 times. And so we just had to, all right, put the backup back on there, put the backup back on there until, we could figure out what was breaking it. So yes, that is a really good point, is that how do you back up your website? Well, the host is possibly will provide that for you. They'll make copies. So that's one way to do it. Another way is to use a plugin and do that yourself. And that's what I suggest. Again, it's cheap. Google Drive is free with each Gmail up to 15 gigabytes. Most of your sites are going to be in what we call a zip file. So they're going to be kind of compressed and condensed anyways. So it's not really going to take up a lot of server space unless you've got a lot of cat pictures already on there. Okay. Yes.
So it's not cloud-based.
So it is.
Automatically
Yes, you either have to ask your host to back it up, which sometimes that's part of the service and they will do that. So they'll back it up on their server, usually away from that server. So if that server gets contaminated, they have something clean, or you can do it yourself. But WordPress just doesn't do it automatically. And yes, to answer your question on the cloud, Google's a cloud. So what is a cloud? A cloud's a bunch of computers, right? And then usually now we have it's software that makes computers inside computers. They're not even hardware. It's just all the stuff that would make a computer. So that's what a cloud would be. And again, start with Google Drive. It's free, to make your backups and give you some security. And another thing I'll do is I'll have that plugin. Then there are plenty of backup plugins out there to choose from. But I'll have that plugin. So sometimes I'll make a copy of the website and then I'll just pull it onto my own machine before I mess it up. So if I do mess it up, it's like, oh, okay, just put it back, And a lot of times you can do that on the dashboard on the back end that we're showing you here. Sometimes it really breaks, and then we have to do what we call FTP. So we actually go into the file system of WordPress, because WordPress is it's a bunch of files. That's basically what it is. It's a bunch of files that each one tells one thing to do another thing, another thing to do another thing. And that's why some developers don't like it, because it can be kind of performance and inhibiting. It can make your website run slower, things like that. But WordPress is really good usually about dealing with that. And that was kind of the thing I wanted to show too in bonus, how do you basically just take your website and see how it's performing as far as speed or how fast it goes. And Google does, I think it's about 10% of your SEO ranking, or where they're going to put you on the Google list, has to do with how fast your website loads. And that has a lot to do with everybody's using their phone. And sometimes they're on 3G. So you need to have something performative. So and one of the main no-nos is images. People want to have a really nice image, but it's not going to transfer that well on a phone. So if you have a 1 gigabyte or even a 1.3 megabyte, or it's too much. So you want to have, I like to shoot for 200 kbps or kilobits on an image, unless there are instances so the San Juan Ridge has a tapestry program, so they have this really intense small needlework. So what I'll do is I'll have an image that's kind of fuzzy, but then when they click on it, they get to, really open it up and see that intricate stuff that you're not going to see on a well-optimized thing. So that would be a way around that.
Going back to the backup, so is there also a restore app, or is that built into backup? And is there a differences so that you can see what happened between each of your backups?
Most backup plugins will have a restore feature because that's kind of what they're designed to do, is to back it up and then restore it. As far as logs, there are different ways that you can look at what those are, but they also will tell you, like on the plugin itself, it'll go through and it'll say, this backup happened on October, whatever, this backup happened on September, this backup happened on, May or whatever you have. So it does kind of at least give you that, and you can schedule, like I said, you can go in there and say exactly what you want that backup, when you want it to happen. There's even, because WordPress is a file system, you can just back up your media folder, or you can just back up your database, or you can back up just your themes, just parts of it if you want to. I tend to just grab the whole thing. It's a lot easier. And then it's compressed in a file. You send it off to your drive. And then you basically just have assurance. I have people who are like, I want to manage it myself. You can enable all your plugins to update. I don't recommend it, but for people who do want to do that, backups are essential at that point. Because with one of those updates mess up your site, that'll do it. So I use WP Vivid as my backup. There are a lot out there. I prefer WP Vivid. And it's always changing. What was good today is not good tomorrow. So know that WordPress, like I built that site 10 years ago and it's not working well. There's a reason for that. You do have to kind of stay up on top of some things. And, as the internet gets bigger and more, you need performance or whatever, or sometimes the developer falls off. So that's another thing, is I'm always trying to okay, how many developers, how often are they developing? How many people have downloaded this? When we were looking at those plugins and those star ratings and things like that, those are the things that I'm looking for. Did that answer it? Great. Anybody else have any questions?
What's FTP?
File transfer protocol. So I use FileZilla, but it's another way, and you'll find it a lot of times, like a lot of your servers will allow you to do that. You definitely want to know what you're doing, right? But sometimes you'll find that they just need you. There's sometimes where you have to really just get on that, what I call this, the back end and the front end. There's really another level underneath that where all the files live, and you'll see WordPress has hundreds of files. There's a function file, there's a theme file, there's a plugin. Every plugin has a file, this file, and has all this coding and all these different things that all tell it to go here, do this. All right, now pull this up, next thing, and stuff like that. So you definitely want to be careful, but it is something that I think all people should know about their website, is how to actually get into that part of it. But a lot of times you'll find, if you have a host that kind of give you, I use DreamHost a lot, and they'll give me, I can just get into their file system, because it's literally hundreds of files as WordPress is.
You want to use backup for ransomware? People hijack our site, that's not.
Yeah, well, okay, so ransomware is different, right? So it's it's finding a place where your data lives and it's holding it hostage. So a lot of times WordPress isn't necessarily gonna, there might be a bunch of data, like if you were, collecting a bunch of customers or clients or things like that, that they'd probably get into it. Chances are that's not happening. A lot of times what we'll see in ransomware is that people are actually kind of going into, it's beyond, it's its own, it's not a website, I think what Grass Valley got hacked not too long ago. They went right into their server to get that information and lock it down. So it's not really about it's not a website at that point. So typically we don't hear of WordPress causing problems with ransomware per se, right? It's more of the whatever you've stored your data on that they're looking for, that they want to hold hostage, So. Okay, so if we don't have any questions, I'll give you guys a little bonus because we're we still got a half hour here. And let's see here. Okay, cool. So these are the two websites that I use. All right, Google's the devil, but the devil you want to play with. Okay, it's really important that they do them. I'm not a big fan of everything they do, but if you want to be somewhere, you want to do something, you better think about them. Okay, so they offer this great website. It's called pagespeedwebdev.com. So let's see, like, well, who do we want to snoop on and find out how good their website is? Anybody?
Sierra Commons.
Oh, somebody said Sierra Commons. All right, that's brutal, dude. All right, sorry, Robert. Full disclosure, if you see this, it wasn't me who requested it. I probably didn't spell that right either, did I? Oh, there it is. Okay. All right, so. All right, so we grab Sierra Commons, we put it in this search here, and we analyze it. And one thing I really like about Google is it kind of splits up, okay, what was your performance in mobile and what was your performance in desktop, okay? So these are really great features to have. I know that I think that Sierra Commons is on Squarespace, and they're not always the best performatively, but we will find out here in a minute. Google's not.
What's the URL? Oh, there it is. Never mind.
It's just taking a while. Ooh, so that's not good. So 18 out of 100. Okay. You know, not great as far as ranking goes. Now, understand that it depends on what time of day or whatever happened, but we can see overall that it's not a server issue. It's probably not a traffic issue. It's a build issue, right? Before we go ahead and pick it apart, again, we'll look at desktop. It's 48, so that's not great, right? So, but it does give you this really great insight. So it'll come down here and give you all this report, tell you all this information, but then it'll start telling you, okay, well, these are the things you can do. Some of this is coding, so we would call minify. So what we do is we run a program that takes all the spaces, all the commas, all the different lines, and we smush them together. So that right there will help kind of speed things up. Another big one is you can see we would have gained 1.7 seconds just in trying to do some JavaScript compression, right? Images. So here you go, the images. So here you're saying like this one's 364. You could save if you actually compressed your images and did a little extra to clean them up, right? So we are even going further now. Instead of using JPEG.svg, which is another way, PNG, we're using this thing that Google made called WebP. And it's really taking that image and bringing it, like having super awesome performance as far as having a good image, but having that overall file size of that image, that data be smaller. And I use a plugin called EWWW. It's EWWW. And that one's a great one to put on. And that alone will probably do a lot of performance things for you, because what it'll do is it'll allow you to serve, except for Safari, for some reason, the new Safari doesn't support it. All the other browsers will, and you'll save about 50 to even 70% of your overall file size in your data just by using that kind of format of your image rather than using JPEG, SVG, PNG. Okay. All right. So
That format?
go ahead.
Sorry, what was that format?
Web, WEBP.
Right. Cool. Awesome.
Great. Again, so we are seeing like, all right, they're just kind of telling us all the different things that we could do to help improve this. And these, right here, you can see JavaScript. Just the code is labor intensive. And that's the one thing I really don't like, again, about these kind of platforms like Squarespace, Shopify, Weebly. You're stuck with them. They're developing the platform. You can't. I tried to do that for somebody, said, hey, I was, ran your site and I could see some performance issues. And I was like, I can fix those. And then I went in and it was like, oh, I can't do anything. Squarespace won't let me, and that's again why I don't like those. That's why I'm a big fan of WordPress. You have a lot more input from a larger community and you're not locked into one company. Yes. Yeah, it's just showing you that you can improve, that you could definitely improve. Again, so I might be jumping on a limb here, but here, we'll just put my work one up here. And just so you can see the difference. And I hope I'm right. It can affect the quality. So like I said with that stitching, when you really wanted to make sure that you're showing that, you show that as a second, like let them click on it, open the like light box or something, they can zoom in, fine. And Google's not going to ding you for that. They're going to ding you for that first image or that first page load not being good. They're going to say, no, you could do a lot better. So even like mobile is pretty hard for us, right? We're like the kingpins here, right? But we're still, mobile is a hard one to achieve, and especially in WordPress and a couple different things like that. If you were to build like straight up code, HTML, CSS, you'd be streamlining a lot of that. So you're going to have some pretty performance. But I would say overall, it's not bad. 97. So I'm always happy if I'd like to see that a little bit higher. I'd like to see it in the 70s and 80s. So now I'm gonna have to go back and look at it. But you can see that there is this feels good, right? So this is the one that I use, and then there's another tool, and I'll just show you that really quick because these are just fun things to have around. And if you don't remember and you can't write it down, just remember, this one's actually pretty good. So just remember GT metrics, but you can always just be like, you can use a search engine. I hate to say Google because I use DuckDuckGo. Use a search engine and say, I want to check my performance of the speed of my website. And they're going to give you all kinds of websites that do those kind of checks. So again, so this one's a little bit different from this site in particular because it only deals with desktop. So that's one thing I do like about this Google one is that it shows you the mobile. But this is the one that I was using originally, and it does do that. And also in the development tools that I showed you guys earlier, there is a place where you can actually do that kind of auditing right there through the web developer. And you can also do that. So, again, this one's telling me a beat. The other one said 97. So we could see that there's a little bit of variance here, depending on what time of day or when it was pinged or, what the search or what tool you're using. But again, we're really well in acceptable, speed. So we're loading that page pretty darn fast. One thing I do like about this is if I'm troubleshooting something, so I'll go like say waterfall, and I want to know maybe just my images, like what's going on with my images. And right here you can see, all right, it's listing, what these image sizes were on each one. So that sometimes that's how I can find that one that's really bad. But you can see our images are really small, and yet they're performing fairly well, visually. So images are a death sentence to your website speed if you're not doing some optimization. And you can do that with a plugin. You can do that externally. You can do that through Photoshop. One that I got turned on to is, I'll show you, this is the last little tidbit. No, I did that wrong. Yep, there it is, because I always use it. This one's great. So this one I use to what I would call optimize my page. Now this one's not doing WebP, okay? That's a whole other thing. But what it will do is like, okay, so we've got a image here that's 2.8. And now here, we'll just zoom it down so people can see. All right, so on this side, we have it at 2.79 megabytes, right? So it's a pretty big file. So it's working to change that right now. And of course, it's going to be slow because of the 50 things I have open here. But now we're down to 862 kilobytes. I don't like that still. So I'm going to go like this and just bring that down. And again, it's going to change it. You can also do this thing where we resize it. So like no screen's ever 3,872 pixels. So you could probably start by resizing that down to 2,000, you know, as your widths, right? So we'll see what happens here. It's taking a minute to spit out the next thing. So I like to try to get it in there. But one thing we can see right away is, do you see a difference? Like enough to where you would, you know, and this is really blowing up, y'all. So do you see a difference at all? Yeah, so don't worry about it. You know what I mean? What we're doing is it's called lossy. So they take out they're taking out little dots. They're just taking out a bunch of them, you know, and sometimes they'll get rid of the metadata. So there's a bunch of information inside that image that we don't even see. It's all this stuff like it was shot on Tuesday and this thing and by this camera. Get rid of all that. You don't need it. Okay, so just seeing, we just pull the slider and now, or again, we're down here to 548 kilobits. So in general, this is one of my favorite tools. It's pretty time consuming. Like if you have 100 of them, but as you're doing it, you know what I mean? Like I'm loading this image on my website. You know what? I'm going to listen to him and I'm going to go ahead and at least try to get my images down a little bit. This is a great tool to have because it's online, it's free. Yeah.
You can do that beforehand with like Photoshop or another.
Yes, I'm not a big Photoshop guy, so I don't know enough about that, but I do have a colleague that says that they do batch Photoshop all the time. So there is ways of doing that. And I'm sure that there's probably online things like that do it. I'll use a plugin too. Because what happens is I'll pass it off to my client and they're not going to care. And they're just going to put the biggest image possible up there. So what I do is that when that image comes into the media library, it automatically gets optimized. And then it also gets a copy of it made into the WebP format that I like to use and try to serve that first. Because clients are busy. That's why they hired you in the original, for me anyways. They don't have time to fuss with this website. So they need to depend on me to make sure it works. No. Okay, that is everything that I have to offer. Any last thoughts, questions?
So you say there's an automation that when image coming to your library.
Yep. So plugins, again, plugins. There's 15. There's freemium and there's premium. So I use one that takes a long time and I have to do a couple cycles, but it's free. There's other ones you can pay if I do 40 gigabytes, then they charge me that 40 gigabyte fee or whatever. Some will allow you a certain amount of premium, but like, okay, you can only do 30. Because they essentially are sending your image to their computer, their software, their resource, takes money, time, all that for them, and then sending it back to you. So
Quality. So I upload a lot of videos to YouTube.
Yeah.
And also Facebook.
Yep.
So that quality is also being diluted.
No, because Facebook has its own way of dealing with images. So they're gonna just compress that however they need to, because there's no way that they're gonna serve a big image like that. They just, it lives on their server because it's free, even though you are the product. So Facebook doesn't do that. YouTube, you can do whatever you want. You want it HD, go ahead. They don't care. I'm sure at a certain point they're like, hey, you can only have so many files on here like that at that size without. I haven't really extensively used YouTube, but I know that places like YouTube, Vimeo, you can have whatever you want. What we do inside of like, say, the website is that we will do what we call lazy loading. So we won't let that a lot of times one thing I really hate is like, don't let the video just start streaming. Because it'll mess up with your performance and loading. But we'll do this thing where lazy load. So until you scroll up on that item or that video content on your website, it won't load the page. It won't be on that part of it. So if it's below the fold, we call it. So as you're scrolling up, then you see it, then it'll load that. And then a lot of times I always tell my clients, try to stay away from video backgrounds. Try not to have your video automatically start. It's annoying, right? So I'll go to I love cooking, but and every once in a while, I'm a pretty good cook, so I know what to do, but every once in a while I need a recipe. Man, have you guys noticed the blogs are just getting worse and worse and worse because they're trying to get you to buy something. They're also have all these extra things because that gives them revenue, so they're popping up all this stuff, and then they got a video and you're like, dude, like, I just need to know what the measurements are so I don't make too salty again. Yeah, even then, sometimes it's like clap, clap, and then pop-ups. So don't get me started on those. Are the nightmare. You want a surefire way to get me to bounce out of your website? Give me a pop-up.
Yeah. It's a higher value, right?
Exactly. Yep. Gil.
I have two questions. One, on the plugins, if you have to pay for that, is that a one-time or is that reoccur?
Some are one time, some are annual.
What's the difference between a plugin and a widget?
Well, so a widget would be something that it's usually like a container, right? So it's something that would be part of a website. So a lot of WordPress, you would probably use some things will come with widgets, but and I think maybe, and I don't know enough to speak to this exactly, but I think other people use the term widget in their content management systems rather than plugins. So
Widgets came up one time when you were going down the.
yeah, so I think we saw it here, right? Yeah. So in this case, the widget is gosh, I don't know this theme. Okay, so yeah, so this is the widget, the widget footer area. So what they're talking about is like a space in the sidebar, or like right here we have footer, the WooCommerce area. So they're more or less just kind of areas where the content is kind of existing in that space. So it's really more about how that content's being displayed, whereas a plugin's a lot about functionality. You'll hear that term a lot with web developers. Functionality, like basically do something, function. So that's what we're typically using a plugin for, and that plugin could be used for a web page builder. So like Elementor, that's a plugin. That's a function, right? Stripe, PayPal, those are plugins that you can use. That's a function. I want a cool gallery. I go get that plugin. That's another function. So that's widgets. I think those are going away. I mean, they'll still be in the theme land, but I mean, widgets are just they're kind of old in use cases. You won't see them as much anymore on more newer themes. You're definitely never going to see them on a page builder. So.
Shopping cart considered as a plugin or widget?
Well, a shopping cart is a function, right? So like WooCommerce, for example, has a shopping cart that comes along with that. So that's part of the program, or all the different dimensions to that WooCommerce platform, right? So you have your shopping cart. I mean, you have your store page, your products, your individual products, your checkout, and that's all part of a part of that kind of thing. You can even get separate ones that just kind of make your shopping cart, unique, some functionality, something like that you're looking for. But yeah, that just kind of falls again under functionality, and you would use a plugin for that. Or themes. Sometimes maybe a theme might have that, but typically not. Most themes aren't going to have all these other added things to it. you'll use a plugin for that. But there are the themes that do build some of that functionality, and and that is the appeal to some people, right? Because they don't have to deal with an extra plugin and figure out how to integrate it. Okay. Yes.
So, I'll just use my business as an example, but I have a business that requires me to change photographs seasonally
Yeah.
on a regular basis, and what's food-based, so the photographs or the images are really important. How difficult is it to, like, once I build my website, to go in, like, say, every month and swap the photos?
It really just depends on how many photos you're swapping, and
Hey.
what the theme looks like and things like that. So
Hey, Ethan.
yes, David, we got to
So,
wrap up, right?
I just have a thought for her photo question. You can integrate Instagram into your WordPress site and just post your pictures to Instagram and have it display, the
Right.
latest three or six.
So David in my ear just brought up a good point about Zoom. So David in my ear just brought up a good point that he wanted to speak to about what you're asking there. And one thing you can do is you can use like a way to integrate Instagram into your WordPress website. And then you're just posting there and I do that a lot. Like we don't go to websites anymore. We go to one website, Facebook, right? So, I mean, most of us do. I know not everybody, but what happens is that's a really good place to connect with your people now. Sometimes I even say to people like, don't do a website, just do some social media pages and things like that at first. Create a brand, create an idea, then do that. But what Dave's suggesting, and it's something that I do a lot, is you can take the feed or whatever you get from Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, and put it on your website. And so to me, it's a really great way, especially for people who are like, I don't go to the website, but boy, do I post. And that's really important, is fresh content. Like, you want me to come back to your page, you better have something new. So, all right, I'd love to just keep talking about this because I could talk about it for hours, but I think we are kind of almost at our limit for the night. So, yes.
As a quick chill for Sierra Commons, is there an interest among the people for a workshop where you bring in your WordPress, whatever, and work among yourselves or with a lead to answer some of the questions that come up? So it's a hands-on.
Gosh, I hope so. I mean, we're doing this through ERC and the NCTC, but we're also doing this through Star Commons. I really hope so. My dream would be to meet with everybody once a month and just WordPress out. So if it's 15 minutes talking about something, and then we all just kind of get in groups and do that and network and create relationships and support each other, absolutely. And I would be more than happy to help facilitate that. So it's hard because people say interest, and then I mean, you guys, this is awesome. This is more than I expected. I was like, I don't know if I'm even going to talk to anybody today. So seeing that there is an interest is really, really, it's telling. So I think that I would love to see that people getting together and WordPressing. Absolutely. Sacramento meetup, check that one out. That's super awesome. That's on the meetup, so that's a great one. Anybody's welcome to come to that one. You do have to RSVP, and it's just Zoom, so it's pretty cool. You can turn off your camera, eating your dinner, and get some education. Like I said, there's a huge community, and if you want to create community, I want to create community too. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, let's see. Okay, so you guys can contact me at, for those who want to, sorry, put your notebook away. Ethan, ETHAN. I'll repeat it too. Ethan, ETHAN, at truenorthdesign.net. And that's how you can get a hold of me. You're welcome. Yeah, and definitely shoot me an email if people are interested. You know, and even if maybe we can't do it in Sierra Commons, you know, if you guys want to get a coffee shop and take over a corner of it and, you know, have some espresso and bagels or whatever, and bring our laptops and have that kind of experience, I'm totally down to that too. So, you know, I believe in WordPress. I actually believe that it could democratize the internet because now we have it in our hands and we can do with it. So if we all got together, we might even be able to ditch Facebook. Yeah, right on. Okay, well, thank you all for coming and thank you for listening. Okay, thanks Zoomers too. I think we are out. So I don't know if you have anything you want to wrap up, David.
No, thanks so much for doing this, Ethan.
Great. Yeah. All right. Thanks, Jude. And I didn't see Catherine and George.
Good.
Thanks for joining. I think I'm gonna duck out here. So
All right,
thank you all
thanks,
for coming.
Ethan.
Right on.
What's your name again?
Yeah. Ethan, ETHAN. And you want my email or just my name?
Yeah.
You want the email?
It's Ethan, True North.
.net. Yep. Yeah. Thank you. I'm glad you enjoyed it.
Hey, you guys have any questions? I'm gonna end the Zoom now. But if there's any last minute queries, happy to answer.